Welcome Kumas to another World of Warcraft guide. You're here with Kumar. This time we're going to be covering Herbalism, one of the 3 primary gathering professions in World of Warcraft. I will be covering everything in this guide, from the basics of Herbalism, general tips to maximize your gains from Herbalism, as well as the best farming methods for specific herbs in Legion to maximize how much gold you get with Herbalism. Now, if you haven't already, you should definitely check out my why you should get enchanting and why you should get tailoring video, because I am going to be making videos for every single profession in World of Warcraft, one at a time, and that way you can pick whichever profession is most suitable for you. Personally, I use enchanting and jewel crafting on my main, but that's just me, so, you know, pick whichever poison suits you best. I will be providing a link to different timestamps in the video in the description below, so that way you can actually go to the part of the video that is most relevant to you. I do recommend you watch the entire video because I will be giving tips throughout, and it is catered for both beginners and veterans, so there's kind of something for everyone, and you might actually miss out by skipping through the video. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like and also a comment if you did enjoy the video, and also feel free to subscribe, because I will be putting out videos for World of Warcraft every single Tuesday. Those will be guides and the occasional World of Warcraft video over the weekends. So yeah, expect World of Warcraft videos every Tuesday. Now, before you get started with Herbalism, there are 2 items in particular I highly recommend that you get, because they are going to make your farming a lot more efficient. Whether or not you're actually farming, they are going to help you in the long run, so you should definitely check them out. The first one that I highly recommend is the Sky Golem. It is an engineering mount which essentially lets you herb without actually getting off the mount. So traditionally, Druids were the only ones that were actually able to herb without getting dismounted. This is because they had flight form and they could actually herb nodes from their flight form. But now we actually have the Sky Golem mount, which enables anyone to essentially come to a herb and harvest it without actually getting dismounted. This will actually save you a lot of time because you won't actually get dismounted every single time you herb something. But it is a little bit expensive because it does have actually some very rare materials that you have to actually create through transmuting on a daily basis, and it actually takes 1 or 2 weeks to transmute all the materials for the mount, so it is fairly expensive. But I would check your server AH to see how much it goes for, but in my case, it was very well worth the investment. Well, in my case, I made it for myself, but it is fairly expensive on the AH, but it's worthwhile in the long run. I'd also recommend that you actually get the enchant for the gloves Herbalism. It's called the Legion Enchant Gloves, Legion Herbalism. You can get it from essentially any enchanter that actually has done the quests in Legion. They will purchase it in Stormheim, and it's not too expensive to make. I would check your AH, but if it's costing more than 200 gold, it's a little bit overpriced because the materials aren't that expensive. So if you don't want to pay the AH price, feel free to whisper any enchanter and ask them how much you would have to tip them in order to make that enchant for you. It is worthwhile because it is going to speed up how long it takes for you to actually herb a node, and in the long run it actually is going to save you a lot of time, particularly when you're doing circuits. All those little few seconds are going to add up, and it's particularly useful if you're actually around level 108 in Suramar like I was on my druid, and you're actually trying to herb nodes and you're being chased by level 110 mobs. It is going to save your life, and it is definitely worth it. Now, there are 6 herbs in World of Warcraft Legion, and let's cover them from top to bottom. The first one that we have is the one that is found in Arjuna. It is called the Aethril. Now, while this particular herb is nothing relatively special on its own, it does actually give you a bonus when you have the rank 3 of this particular herb in Herbalism. Now, the rank 3 for this particular herb causes additional herbs to appear occasionally. What this means is when you're actually herbing a node and you finish herbing it, another node may spawn right next to it and you can herb that node again. Essentially, this is going to passively increase the amount of materials you're going to be getting throughout Herbalism, and luckily for us, this actually applies to all the herbs in the Broken Isles. So it's not only on the Aethril, it actually applies to all of them, including Starlight Rose, Felworth, Foxflower, Dreamleaf, and even that one herb that I can barely pronounce, so forgive me, Fjarnskaggl Fjarnskaggl, I cannot pronounce it, so forgive me, but it will cause herbs to occasionally spawn another one. I have had it actually happen a few times in a row. The most it's happened for me is 5. I've heard people saying they can get as much as 6, even more. I'm not sure if that's actually been nerfed, but it's very rare. It does occasionally happen, so don't expect it to keep happening every single time, but it's definitely worthwhile getting rank 3 of Aethril for this rank 3 bonus. The second one we have is actually Dreamleaf, and that's in Valshara. The rank 3 for this herb actually lets you get even more herbs when you're farming Dreamleaf. Now this is good for when you're actually farming Dreamleaf, because on some servers the price of this herb is actually very high. I actually don't know why this is, because it's so plentiful and it's so easy to farm, being that a lot of druids are actually going to be questing in the area. Like my druid. My druid actually spent levels 100 to 108 in Valshara just farming herbs and doing dungeons. So I've literally got thousands of Dreamweave, and I got rank 3 by the time I was, I think, level 104. So I don't know. For some reason, this herb actually does sell well on some servers, but you will actually need it if you're an alchemist, so it's definitely worthwhile farming. And if you have rank 3, you're going to get a lot more herbs, which is very good for you. Now, the third herb we have is the one we find in Stormheim. It's called the Fjarnskaggl. I cannot pronounce that, so forgive me. And the rank 3 for this particular herb is a little bit useless if you have the Sky Golem, because it lets you mount quickly after gathering any herb in the Broken Isle. As that may suggest, you get dismounted if you don't have the Sky Golem, and this particular rank 3 will let you remount a lot quicker. Now this is completely useless if you have the Sky Golem, but if you can't actually afford it, it's very useful to have the rank 3 for this herb. But I highly recommend that you do actually get your hands on a Sky Golem, even if you have to pay some alchemists on a daily basis to actually transmute some bars for you, and then you have to actually bribe an engineer to create it for you. The fourth one is the Foxflower. This is found in High Mountain. Now the rank 3 for this particular herb, like the Dreamleaf, will actually let you get a lot more Foxflower every single time you do gather the node, but the one little thing I do like about this flower is that you will occasionally spawn a fox that is going to start running around in a random sort of pattern, and if you chase it, you're actually going to keep picking up fox flowers. So while this little fox is running around, it's actually dropping these flowers. You usually get about 20 every single time this fox appears. The first time this fox appeared for me was when I actually had rank 2 of Foxflower. I'm not sure if you need rank 2 in order for this fox to appear, but that was the first time it appeared for me, and now it does occasionally. It's actually pretty cool because this particular herb is actually spread out a lot more than the other ones, so the nodes aren't very densely located in one area, so this sort of helps with that, which is why I think they put it into the game. I don't know if this is a reference to something, but it's pretty cool in my opinion. We've got the Starlight Rose, which is very popular in Suramar. Now, everyone goes to farm this particular herb, but it is a little tricky to farm. First of all, you have to be around level 108. It's most effective if you're level 110 because you're not going to aggro everything in the area. But what is annoying when you're farming this particular herb is that you will actually fail to gather the node until you actually get rank 1 and 2, because this particular herb is very hard to gather. Most often you are actually going to fail rather than getting the herb. Now when you get rank 1, you're obviously going to fail a lot less often, but you still have the chance to actually fail when gathering this herb. So you're not always going to get the Starlight Rose when you're trying to farm it. Rank 2 is going to give you the ability to gather rare materials, which is the blood of Sargeras, which you can actually use in a vendor in Dalaran to buy different trade goods. And when you eventually get rank 3 of Starlight Rose, you will never fail when you're trying to farm this herb. Now rank 3 is a pain to get. Some people have been lucky enough to get it after a few hundred nodes, and some people have been so unlucky that they haven't gotten it after 10,000 nodes. So don't ask me how long it's going to take to actually get rank 3 for Starlight Rose, because it is completely random. If you don't have NR Jesus on your side, you're essentially screwed. So don't expect to get rank 3 for Starlight Rose anytime soon. It's a pain and it's a grind. Now we also have Felworth. This particular herb is very rare because Felworth only actually appears as a world quest. Now, if you open up your map in different zones, you may occasionally find a little quest circle on your map with a little herb on it. That is actually Felworth. Now, if you go over there and you actually pick it up, you will actually get 2 or 3 of them. I sometimes get a little bit more, and it is actually quite valuable on my server. It goes for a few hundred gold, and you will occasionally get another seed which you can actually plant, and you can get more seeds in Felworth. Now, I don't particularly know why it's so expensive, considering once you get the seed and you plant it, you can gather more of it and you get another seed on occasion. So if you've got 2 or 3 seeds, you can keep farming these things indefinitely, but the price seems to be fairly high on my server. I don't know why, but I don't know, it's worthwhile. So if you do actually have Herbalism and you're level 110, check your map for different zones because it's a free few hundred goals. It's definitely worth going and picking it up, and it's not particularly difficult. You're usually just going to have one mob standing over this herb and casting something. You don't even have to kill this mob, just stun it, or if you're stealthy with Legion Herbalism Glove Enchant, you can actually just pick up the herb and run away. You don't even have to kill this mob. It's completely pointless to kill this mob if you can just pick up the herb and run away, because the mob's not going to drop anything good anyway. Now, for most of these herbs, you are actually going to get rank 1 simply by gathering the herb. You're going to pick up an item that says, okay, I picked up this item or this sample. I need to take it to the Herbalism trainer in Dalaran. As soon as you go to the Herbalism trainer in Dalaran, you're going to get rank 1 for whichever herb sample you found. I highly recommend you do this straight off the bat, because then you're going to have the chance to get the item for rank 2. So if you pick up rank 1, you might be thinking, it's not worth it, it's just rank 1. I highly recommend you get your ass to Dalaran, hand it in, because you're actually going to want to get rank 2 for whatever herb you're herbing as soon as possible, because usually rank 3 is a pain in the ass to get. So you want to improve your odds as much as possible and save as much time as possible. Okay, so now let's cover farming for all these herbs. Now, Aethril is best farmed by doing circuits of Azuna. You literally do a circuit of the entire zone, following the road with a few detours left and right, to pick up the herbs that aren't close to the road. But by the time you complete the circuit, the herbs would have already spawned at your starting area, so you can just keep doing the circuit all day long and farming as many herbs as you want. Now, while this is a particularly good method because you can essentially circuit the entire map if you want to, or you can just stick to the main circuit sort of close to the middle, circling the Nathala Academy. But I did find a few herb nodes in close proximity of each other. There were about 4 or 5 nodes in very close proximity of each other near the Ruined Sanctum. So what I essentially did was I farmed those 4 or 5 herbs, and then I logged out and I logged back in about 5-6 minutes later. I farmed those 4 or 5 nodes again. I logged out, I logged back in, I farmed those nodes again. You can essentially do this indefinitely because these herbs will spawn after 5-6 minutes. So you can do this as many times as you want. I was actually doing this to get rank 3. So what I did was, after I had rank 2, I just sort of parked my druid there. I logged in, I farmed those herbs, I logged out, I did something on my main, I did something on my ults, a little bit of AH, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And every single time I was logging off and on characters, I would actually pop onto my druid, farm these nodes and log off. So this way, it didn't actually feel like I was farming, but by the end of it, I did end up getting rank 3 and ended up getting a few hundred herbs in the process. And it didn't even feel like farming because I was on for a total of maybe 20-30 seconds every single time I logged on. So in essentially under a minute, I would log on, farm these 4 or 5 nodes and log back off. So it's better than running circuits all day, and it's a lot less boring, I assure you. Now, Dreamleaf is very plentiful in Valshara, but the best way to farm it, well, there's 2 best ways to farm it. One is a circuit where you keep going around the outside of the Grove of Sinaris, and another one is by killing the mobs just outside of Shalanir. Now, these particular mobs, when you kill them, they do drop herbs occasionally and a few seeds, but you can actually herb them afterwards, which is very useful. So if you actually do want to grind mobs, if you want to be a little more active, you can actually grind these mobs. You're going to get some experience, but you will occasionally run into the opposing faction because there is a dungeon there, and a lot of people that might be doing mythic might be going in and out, so you might occasionally die if you're a low level, even if you're a high level. But essentially in this zone, when I was leveling and I was just waiting for my dungeons or doing world quests, I was getting so much Dreamleaf you couldn't believe, because rank 3 of Dreamleaf does give us more herbs. So if you're farming Dreamleaf, you're gonna get a lot of it anyway. But if you want to do the circuit, I recommend just doing the circuit and avoiding the opposing faction as much as possible, because depending on the day, there's going to be different world quests in different areas, and if you pop in there to try to get a herb, chances are they're going to want to kill you because you're an honor kill. So avoid them as much as possible. That's why I love my druid, because I've got prowl, so if someone does start chasing me or someone targets me, I can just sprint away and actually go into prowl and just avoid combat altogether. But if you don't have that, I just recommend avoiding them as much as possible. Now, if you're trying to farm oh, this is gonna be funny, Fjarnskaggl, I cannot pronounce that herb's name, I give up, in Stormheim, it's best farmed by doing 1 or 2 circuits. Now the first is on the first island in the northwest section of Stormheim around Agrimar's vault, and the second being the eastern island where the halls of Valor are. Now in the first one, you're going to be sort of going around that massive hill in the middle. If you sort of follow the path that I have on the image in the video, you just sort of follow the main road and you will be picking up herbs just off the main road. So it's not particularly difficult, you're not going to aggro too many mobs, and you are going to get a fair number of herbs. Now the second circuit, the one on the eastern island, you are essentially going to be keeping to the edge of the entire island. You just sort of keep to the outskirts and you follow that particular circuit which is in the image. You are going to get a fair bit more mob aggro if you're doing this circuit, because you are actually going to be going through camps, but I did find you did get some more herbs in this. However, I did find an even better way to farm this particular herb, a little bit like the Aethril. Now, believe it or not, if you go up to Holtzflad, I hope I pronounced that correctly, you'll see I actually posted a screenshot of my cursor. If you actually go into that particular section there towards the shoreline, there are about 5 or 6 herb nodes that you can actually farm at a time, and as I did last time, I just logged off and logged back in every now and then, farm those herbs, log off, log back in. You will occasionally have to climb up the shore, you just follow the path and you will pick up a few more herbs, but you can keep doing this to your heart's content. I mean, you get 5 or 6 herbs in about 1 or 2 minutes, which I find a lot more useful than actually running around to get those herbs. So I'm lazy. I don't particularly like doing circuits anymore. I did a lot of those back in Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade, so I don't particularly like farming in circuits anymore, but you can if you do want to, but I particularly prefer this method of logging in and out. You can also realm hop. I don't actually do that, but you can sign up for different groups and you get hopped to their realm and you can keep doing this circuit indefinitely. I don't do it because I'm pretty sure that breaks some sort of rule that Blizzard has, so I'd rather not get banned, so I wouldn't recommend it. Next up is the Foxflower in High Mountain. Now this one is a little tricky because the nodes aren't actually as dense as the other herbs, so they're a little more spread out, so you're gonna have to do a lot more running around to get these nodes. But on the plus side, like I mentioned before, you will occasionally get a fox that does spawn that starts running around, and if you chase this fox and you pick up all the petals that it's dropping, you are going to get a foxflower for every single one of those petals that you pick up, and usually the fox sort of drops around 20, which is really nice, and rank 3 of foxflower will give you a lot more herbs, which is also nice. So since the nodes aren't very dense, you do get a nice little bonus, so it sort of evens itself out. Now there are 2 circuits. One of them is right in the middle of High Mountain, which I personally don't like because it actually involves following the road a lot, and if you don't actually follow the directions, you can easily make a wrong turn and get off the path and go into mobs, and you are going to encounter a lot of the opposing faction because you are going to be going through a lot of leveling zones, a lot of skin farming zones, and a lot of world quest zones, so you are going to encounter a lot of the opposing faction, and chances are they are going to try to kill you, so I personally don't like this because you have to actually pay a lot of attention and not make a wrong turn, because if you do, you're going to fall off the path and you're going to have to backtrack, which is very annoying. I personally don't like the middle circuit, but hey, try it and see if it works for you. It might work for you and you might prefer it. Now the second circuit is actually one of my favorite, and it involves going from the shoreline from the west to the east, so you're essentially just following the shoreline and its road from one end of High Mountain to another, and then you just take the flight master and you fly back to the other flight master and you keep doing this circuit. I mean, you can do it from left to right or you can do it from right to left, it doesn't really matter. I prefer doing it from left to right. I don't know why, it's just the way I am. and you will actually encounter a lot of Foxflower herbs. There is a very sort of dense collection of Foxflower herbs on western side of the shore, but they don't actually spawn very often. So while typically the other herbs do spawn every like 5-6 minutes, these ones actually don't for some reason. I don't know why. So that whole log in and out method doesn't actually work for the Foxflowers, but if you are actually running this circuit, you will get enough herbs. Another cool thing, if you are a hunter or even sort of just want to go up to the main hill and you do have that kite or goblin glider, you can just sort of jump off and keep gliding until you find a herb, and then you can just cancel your glide and land in the water and run to the herb. That's what I usually do. So if I don't actually have a particular herb on the ground, I'm not actually going to land and aggro any mobs until I find a herb. So this is very useful for me when I'm trying to cover distance and not actually aggro anything, but you know, give it a try. I typically also like to multitask when I'm farming or doing these circuits, which is why I don't like the first circuit, because I usually like to watch something on YouTube or watch some TV show or something. So I usually take a lot of wrong turns and I don't like the backtracking. But if you actually like to focus while you're farming, I'm sure that the first circuit will work well for you. Now, Starlight Rose in Suramar is a lot simpler, since all you have to do is focus on a very small circuit in the entrance to Suramar. That's on the northwest section of Suramar. Just where that bridge is, you're essentially going from one side of the shore to the other and doing a big circuit and going back and forth. Now, I've tried several routes where I've actually done the whole of Suramar, and I found that this little starting circuit is actually the best, because there's such a dense collection of Starlight Rose nodes that keep spawning back and forth that you're going to get the most just doing circuits of this. You're not going to be farming the same node every single time you do a circuit, but another one will spawn instead, because there's a lot of them. I will include a screenshot to show you just how many nodes there are there. It's ridiculous. So don't even bother doing a complete circuit of Suramar. I mean, feel free to try to. I have tried multiple times and I found I get the most just by doing this little small circuit. Now, if you do it before you're level 110, I highly recommend you do it on a character that does have Feign Death, Vanish, or Prowl. Otherwise, you're gonna have a problem every single time you aggro a lot of mobs, because they don't actually scale, because this is an end game zone, so they are all going to be a level 110. I started doing it 108 on my druid, and I was actually fine because I had the enchants, the sky golem that can always sprint and prowl. But if you don't actually have these, you might have a bad time. Now, I will highly recommend that instead of actually just selling these herbs on the AH, you do pick up alchemy. That is what I do with my herbs. I don't actually put them on the AH. I actually turn them into flasks, and I sell these flasks on the AH, and I will be making an alchemy video that will cover this, as well as other things that I do with alchemy to make gold. And trust me, it does make a lot of gold, so it's definitely worthwhile, especially if you have multiple herbalists, because you can just use all your herbs and craft your own potions and flasks and just pop them onto the AH. So this will be covered in the alchemy video that I will be making very shortly. Thanks for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this guide, please leave a like and a comment below. Just hit me up in the comment section below if you have any questions or even tips or even other ideas. I'm free to suggestions also on how to improve my videos. I mean, I have taken your suggestion on board of not actually talking while I'm filming, so I'm actually talking now, and I filmed before, so hopefully the quality of these videos has improved. So let me know in the comment section below on how else I can improve my videos, and be sure to check out my other guides in my World of Warcraft guide playlist. But I do also have a World of Warcraft discussion and let's play playlist. That's where I sort of discuss and I do let's plays of the zones, and just sort of I talk about Warcraft related stuff. So if you want to check that out, feel free. I did get some of these images from wowprofessions.com. Now, I have sort of been looking at different websites back and forth while I was leveling for different areas to farm, and I found that wowprofessions.com was the sort of most accurate routes for me. Now, I don't get anything from it. I just sort of like their screenshots, so I'm using it, and I'm just telling you guys because I didn't actually create the images, so I don't want to like end up on some exposed video where I'm taking screenshots from a website and that's exposing something. So I got the screenshots from wowprofessions.com. Anyway, feel free to experiment with different circuits. These were the ones that actually worked for me, so feel free to make detours, because you might actually find some spots that have more densely located nodes than I have, and feel free to share those locations in the comment section below, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. We're a community of World of Warcraft players that are trying to help each other out to actually get our WoW tokens and expensive mounts. I mean, that's what it's all about. We're not really competing with each other because we're on different servers, and this isn't a zero-sum game where by me having more herbs, that means you have less herbs, because these herbs keep spawning for everybody. So let's just be nice and help each other out. Anyway, till next time, Ninja Kuma out. Bye!